So think about your wardrobe at home. Do you have any clothes, jackets
No, I have no clothes.
that you bought yourself? Shoes,
Yeah, but-
socks, anything that you bought at the damn store.
Yes. Yes, I can think of some clothes that I bought it at a store.
At a store.
By myself.
By yourself. And they're happy with the purchase?
Yes.
What's one of them? Oh, you can't tell us? I mean, it's like you have a jacket, a shirt, Spider-Man underoos, socks, shorts.
I'll go with the socks.
Socks.
Yeah.
All right. So you got a pair of socks.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you bought it?
Yes.
Okay, cool. We're getting somewhere. All right, good. So you got a pair of socks. You went to the store and you bought socks.
I did.
Excellent. Okay, cool. So we're good now. So now what we want to do is go through the state elicitation script, or the strategy elicitation script, and figure out where and when and how and all that stuff works. So what you'll want to do to follow along is, of course, you'll grab a piece of paper and a pen and write down the strategy shorthand notation. Okay, strategy shorthand notation. So, Brett, so you said socks?
Yes.
Okay, good. So can you recall a time recall the time when you went into the store when you were about to make the decision to buy the socks?
Yes.
Okay, good. And just before that, do you remember the specific time?
Before going into the store?
Just when you were about to decide to buy those socks. You hadn't quite decided that those are the socks to buy yet.
That was in the store.
You were in the store, and you're probably looking at socks.
Yeah.
And you were deciding, should I buy these socks or not?
Correct.
And then later on, you made the decision that, yes, I'm going to buy these ones.
Yes.
Right. Cool thing is, remember, guys, decision strategies, big decision, small decision, doesn't matter. How he decides on socks is how he decides on houses. Okay? That's why it doesn't matter what we use, really. I know. You're like, really?
Wow.
I better put more effort into my sock decisions.
I think it's robust enough. Let's say that much. I don't need to worry about that.
It's robust enough.
Exactly.
A lot of criteria for your socks.
There's a criteria for everything.
Yeah. How you do anything is how you do everything. Right, of course. That's good. All right, so can you recall the specific time when you were about to make the decision to buy the socks?
Yes.
Okay, good. I want you to go back to that time now.
Yes.
So really go back to that time. And as you go back to that time now, just before you're about to make the decision to buy the socks, what was the very first thing that you did that caused you to be able to make the decision? Was it something that you said? Or was it something you saw, something you heard? Or was it the touch of something or someone? What was the very first thing that caused you to be able to make the decision? First thing happened.
First thing is I'm seeing
You saw the
the various socks I was looking at. So one of them was the one I did buy.
Okay, good. So right when you spotted those socks, right after you saw those socks, what's the very next thing that happened? Did you just make a picture in your head of something? Did you say something to yourself? Or did you get a certain feeling or emotion? What was the very next thing that happened as you're about to make the decision? Right after you saw them, that particular socks, go right back there right now. What's the very next thing that happened right after you saw those
First thing
socks?
that's coming up in my head is looking and saying, what's the price?
What's the price? Good. And then as soon as you check the price, then what's the very next thing that happened as you're about to decide to buy those socks? Right when you check the price, then what?
I obviously knew the prices of all the other socks. And then I also looked at them from the standpoint of putting myself in a situation where I'm using them. So these were athletic socks. Or I could have used the work socks. But both of them I was saying what situation I'm in and what's the utility of that value.
What's the utility of the value for these socks?
Yes.
Good. And then right after you looked at the context and the utility of it, you saw the socks, you checked the price, you checked the utility. Right after you did that, what's the very next thing that happened as you're about to make the decision to buy those socks? Did you make a picture in your head? Did you say something to yourself? Did you get a certain feeling or emotion? What's the very next thing that happened as you're about to decide?
I would say there was a self-talk of going through those, and
So
then
you
I
said
said
something
I
to
agree to that, and I said that, that sounds good, and yeah, I said that's good.
You said that's good? Okay, so as soon as you said that's good, okay, and make sure you're jotting this down. So as soon as you said to yourself, that's good. Yep, like that matches, that's good, that's the thing. Then at that point, did you know it was time to decide? Or what's the very next thing that happened? Did you see something in your head? Did you say something to yourself? Or did you get a certain feeling about that or emotion?
I saw myself making sure it would fit for my image of how I should have those socks on.
Okay.
Or with whatever clothes.
Okay.
And then...
So you saw yourself
Yes.
wearing the socks?
Yes.
Okay, good. So as soon as you saw yourself, you guys get, I'm just going step by step, right? Always repeating the first one. So go back now, and you saw the socks, you checked the price, you checked the utility, you said, yep, that fits.
Yep.
And then as soon as you saw yourself, a picture in your head wearing the socks, then what's the very next thing that happened is you're about to make the decision?
Felt good.
Felt good?
Mm-hmm.
So it felt like these are the right socks?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. And as soon as it felt good, did you know it was time to make the decision?
Yes.
Obviously, if it felt good, and
It felt
right.
good, yeah. Now, that being said...
So hang on, so let's go back for a second. What do you think the first step was? Visual what? Good. I'll bring this over here. Visual external. Now remember, each step must lead to the next step. If the first step isn't hit, it's never going to lead to the next step, and the strategy will recycle, and you'll look at something else. So if he went and he saw those socks and they were pink, they weren't pink, were they?
No,
They were
no, they
pink.
were not.
Hello Kitty.
They were not.
He saw the Hello Kitty socks, right? But if he saw those socks and they were pink, it was like Gwen's, it's pink socks. If he saw those socks and they were pink, the visual external wouldn't have matched what he was looking for. He would have moved on. He said they were athletic socks. They were white socks.
They were not. That's
were not.
specifically why I was looking for them.
Oh, black socks.
There were like
Gray
gray
socks.
gray
Gray socks.
mesh sock.
Okay, great. So he's looking for a gray mesh athletic sock. So if he went, all he saw was like the Hanes white socks. As soon as he saw that, he would have went no, and he would have moved right on, right? And you probably did that.
Yes.
In a split second, you go sock, 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 and then you found the ones that looked right, and that led to the next step, which was what you think? AD. You guys remember this with a D or T?
D.
Was it data or was it talking to himself? No, the very first, right after he saw the socks, he checked the what? He checked the price was the next step. Come on, you should have written this down. I didn't write it down. But if you wrote it down, you remember the very next thing as soon as he saw it was he checked the price. And then he said he checked for the what? The utility of it. He checked context. And this is interesting. This is what we might call a meta strategy. So up here in his little AD, just a side note, there's a little meta strategy here going on. We'll call it a little convincer strategy. And it's just interesting things to notice. So when he's talking about his AD step here, what were some of the things he said? He said, well, I needed to check the price first. Once the price matched, then I needed to make sure there was a context that I could use these socks, right? Do you think that shows up in other decisions in his life? A little bit or a lot? How you do anything is how you do what, right? So of course it's going to show up. So everything he's going to buy, oh, okay, I have a pen. Okay, I need this for work, but is this the right work pen, or is this a pen for something else? Well, what am I doing this for? So that was all part of his meta convincer strategy. So ADD, and that led to what? Self-talk. Anybody agree with that?
Yeah.
What did he say to himself? You remember? What'd you say to yourself?
That's right.
That's right. But he said something to that effect, right? He said, okay, well, yeah, that looks right, and yeah, this works, or whatever. So once he went through all this data, then he had to say to himself, like, yep. Basically, he's saying some kind of phrase that tells him, yes, the data checks out. But he had to say that phrase. That's AD with a T. That's AD tonal. Good. Or AD talk. Once he said that phrase and that was able to come out right, then what's the very next thing he did? So visual what? Visual construct. Good. So he saw himself wearing the socks. And once he saw himself in the socks and he slid across the floor like Tom Cruise, he did that right. You did that right?
Yes, always.
Yeah.
That's part of the criteria, actually.
Yeah. The criteria is, can I slide across like in risky business? And then once he saw himself doing that, then what's the very next thing that happened? KI. He got a feeling. Remember, even the most AD people end a strategy in a K. What happens is all the AD adds up, and when the AD is correct, then they feel like, yes, that's the right thing to do. It's a solid or a certain feeling. Or if you look at like the Confessions of a Shopaholic, she gets a happy feeling. Anyone seen that movie? Am I the only one that was made to watch that several times? No? Okay. So the shopaholic type person, right? They get that feeling of like excitement, and their strategy ends in excitement. Whereas, does your strategy for socks end in excitement usually?
Well.
Honestly.
Okay.
He's like, oh boy.
Satisfaction that I've made.
Satisfaction.
Yes.
You understand the difference? So if you have a compulsive buying strategy, check your kinesthetic step perhaps, and maybe it's more of it ends in a K, which is excitement. It's like, oh, right? I want that. Whereas someone else that maybe, and you make pretty good decisions when you purchase something, don't you?
Always.
Yeah, always. Especially when you buy courses like this, haven't you?
Of course.
That's right. Of course, of course. So when you make a good decision, it ends in, yes, this is satisfaction, this makes sense, this is the right thing to do, this is, correct. So that might be useful to use, just throwing that out there. So that's a D. Ends in decision. So we have VE, ADD, ADT, VC, KI. Okay? Now, how do we know if these steps are right?
Test them.
We can test them, absolutely. How do you test it? You feed it back to him. Okay? The other thing you can do, and we don't need to take time to do this forever, but the other thing you can do is you can test it with other situations. So we spent about 20 minutes trying to figure out that he bought socks by himself, so I'm not going to do that. But what you can do is you can say, okay, cool, now we have your socks. I like that watch. Tell me about the watch. And he said, oh yeah, I really like this watch. And great, tell me about that. And you can elicit a second or a third even context where somebody had, somebody bought something they were happy with the purchase, right? Remember, we don't want buyer's remorse. You want something that they're happy with the purchase. So if you did it a second and a third time, what you might notice is that the steps are exactly the same. Or you might notice that a couple of the steps are different. That's possible, right? What happens if, one time it's ADD leads to ADT to VC to KI, and another time his ADD leads to auditory external to VC to KI. And another time it's ADD leads to auditory construct, VCKI. Another time it's ADD leads to VR, VCKI. What does that mean? Notice that every time this step seems to be a different step. What does that really mean?
That the meta-signature is altering the...
It's not important.
It means a couple of possibilities, right?
Well, it could be too that he's hearing it from different people, some in his head and some outside of him.
All right, so here's the thing. If a different context happens, if in a different context the strategy seems to shift and change, first off, I promise you the strategy is not changing. But what can happen, though, is maybe one of those steps, maybe it's when it comes to deciding what to eat for food, he has to look at someone else's plate, or he has to maybe try the food first, and then he can decide that it's good. So he has to taste. But then when he goes to buy clothes, he has a KE step. He has to try it on to make sure it fits right because it's clothes. Mm-hmm. And maybe when it's driving a car, he needs to look at it from all angles to make sure it really looks good. Does that make sense? So depending on what the context is, part of your convincer or part of your AD data can come in different representational systems. Right? So just because you're trying on a jacket and you go to the dressing room and you look at yourself in the mirror, that doesn't mean that that's a visual step necessarily. Now, if every single context where you make a decision, you have to step back and look at it, then yes, it's a visual step. But if one context, you have to see it, another context, you got to try it on, another context, you need to hear something about it, then that's just a simple AD step. Does that make sense, you guys? That's all it is. It means it's an AD data step, and it can come to you with different representational systems. So just throwing that out there, that's how you know it's the same. So we'll try this on, and we'll sell him a pen. I'm going to sell him this marker, and we're going to sell it to him backwards and then forwards. So in real life, of course, you would never sell it backwards, right? But in this case, we're going to give that a shot just so you can see what he looks like when he's not inspired to buy something. And then we'll do it forwards, and you'll see the other way.
How much do you want for that?
Oh, you're already ready?
Yes.
I got this water bottle.
Even better.
Yeah. And let's do it backwards first, okay?
Okay.
So I'm sure, how you doing?
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
So Brett, I'll bet you can feel really, really good about seeing yourself, imagining being able to use this water bottle and drink from this water bottle. And, tell yourself how good that is. And you can see that, there's still quite a bit of water left. And, it's from plant bottles, so it's a recycled bottle, and it's a really good price. It's only $3 or so for a bottle. It's quite good. Take a look at buying this. Looks like a pretty good purchase, doesn't it?
Not really.
You see his face, right? So the point is, remember, it doesn't matter what it is, but when you run the strategy right, they'll still feel like they could be persuaded to make that decision. And if it's something that's ecological and they really do want, you can't stop them from making the decision. Okay. So let's try it the front way, shall we? That was funny. He was like, I don't want to touch your wrong water bottle. All right. So Brett.
Yeah.
All right. So take a look at this water bottle real quick. And I'm sure you can see that the water actually came from a pure filtration system. It's a great price. They're really, really cheap. You buy this one, you also get several more as well. Nice recyclable cap and everything. Really cool. What would you say about yourself, wanting to buy that? I'm sure you could say something really good about that. Some positive things. Could you imagine yourself maybe using this bottle and drinking from a bottle like this, purchasing a bottle like that? I'm sure you could see yourself using that in the future in a certain context, couldn't you? Yeah, I bet you can feel good making the decision now, can't you?
Well, that's right.
A little bit of backwash, mostly water.
Authentic Matt Brauning
It is.
saliva, right?
What's that worth?
Priceless.
That's right.
More than MasterCard, let's say that much.
It is.
Yes.
It is priceless.
Mhm.
Good. Did you see the difference in reaction, though? Remember, I don't think I'm ever going to entice him to want some old bottle of my used water, Like, that's never going to really happen. But did you see the difference between when he didn't want it and when he thought it was a good idea? Right? You see the difference, yes? Okay, good. That's feeding a strategy. So did you notice how I fed him the strategy? How do you do that? All you do is you use some predicates and use some of the words you've already taught. So I said, take a look, right, at this bottle, VE. And you can see that, it's a good price. And I fed him back his AD. It's a good price. It's a great deal. You buy one, you get several more. So that's a good price. And I'm sure you can find it. Oh, you know what I didn't say is I could have said, take a look at this bottle. And take a look. And notice it's a really good price. And think about the places in your life where you can use this. You can use it at work so you're hydrated. You can use it when you come to a seminar. You can use it when you're off doing a sport. That's right. All the different contexts where you need to have your own personal water bottle. Imagine that. You can contain it with you. Yeah. And I'll bet you could say wow, that makes sense. That's good to have water bottles with me wherever I go. I bet you can see yourself using that and feel good making the decision now, can't you? That's right. Give me my water.
No,